Books, all types of books. Tonight's topic on the Real Tough Candy live stream. Thank you everyone for joining us here live, uncensored, unfiltered. We're talking about some great books for software developers in 2020, maybe even some not so great books. My focus does want to be on the ones that are good. Those are the ones we really care about, right? But also some that have kind of fallen by the wayside that I have in my collection, we might be able to get to. How's everyone in your neck of the woods? I hope everyone is doing safe. Everyone is feeling healthy. Trying to get through this best we can. Keeping everybody some company tonight on this live. I saw we already have a crew in the chat, which is one of the funnest parts of these entire live streams is the new group of people we get every night. It's a new flavor, a new theme every night. Shout out to Chiquito. Shout out to Janos. Now this guy has been on the channel he has been a day one supporter. He just bought some CandyScript merch. And he also, he's our newest patron. Patrons are called Patreons, and I just wish we could call them patrons, because I always get the two confused. He's my newest supporter over at patreon.com/RealToughCandy. Janos, you got some goodies coming your way, so I'll be in touch with you soon through Patreon to share with you your benefits. Let's do a roll call here and see how everyone's doing on this fine Sunday night. I know we have Austin, Janos, Chiquito, VWeb Code, Mandy Candy, Jeff, how's it going? Whoop whoop. Michael's here. We got two mods on the line tonight. Micah Kornblum, the esteemed MK, checking in. Also Paradoodly-Doo, assistant moderator, reporting for duty, ma'am. Good to have you here, Michael. Thank you for showing up. Jose, did not know Chiquito was a real person. Jose, Chiquito is a very real person. He is indeed. He's one of the biggest supporters of this channel. Also a day one supporter. Great to see everyone here. Already 35 people in the chat. Now, tonight's topic, as you could see from this little wallpaper we have here, it's books. Books, all types of books. Do we even want to waste any time with this? Should we get right into it? Now, actually, let me do a little intro here before we start throwing these books around. A lot of people prefer videos. I totally get that. I totally get that. I was one of those people who had to have it. I needed that step-by-step through video for someone to actually show me. And I still watch videos. Mostly when I'm doing tech stuff nowadays, though, I go to the docs. If I want to expand my knowledge, I'll read the docs, I'll read blogs, sometimes videos, but I just find that reading is just so much more efficient. But no matter where you are in your coding journey, books can really help you. Even if you're not a book person, a lot of these books aren't just about the text. They're really interactive. And I have a few tonight that are on my top 1, top 2 tier that are completely interactive, so you don't get bored. And I do think it can be counterproductive if you are reading a book and you're just kind of like Netflixing the book, you know, just like sitting back and like turning the page. I'm like, that's interesting. You have to use this stuff as soon as possible. Otherwise, it really just gets flushed down the memory hole. So the books that I am talking about today, if they don't have interactive components to them, they do have code snippets. One book I have, a JavaScript book, even has projects inside of it. This is a book I've featured a few times on this channel and my website. But yeah, books, I think, are fit for anyone's home, no matter what your learning style is. And some of these are just never going to go out of style because they are based on fundamentals. Without further ado, I'm trying to think if I need to give any other shout outs. Shout out to Faraday Academy. This is a new channel I discovered. She reviewed Freelance Newbie, and I just stumbled upon it last night. I'm like, oh my gosh, someone reviewed my course. Thank you, Faraday Academy. I think that's the channel name. I'm so bad with names. I think that's the channel name. The person behind the channel is Gwen, and she's been doing some live streaming with Python. She has a lot of interesting coding videos. For people who like the code-alongs and just more of the tutorial type videos and hard tech videos, if you will, check out Faraday Academy. She also reviewed, like I said, Freelance Newbie. Appreciate the feedback and the glowing review. Really is a morale booster when I see those things. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to check the chat, and then we are going to go into the books. The book. Let's see what's going on. Dev Frick says, programmers have been trained to surf the web. One godless monkey. Hello. Dev Frick says, programmers have just not been trained to read books. Programming books are just not sequential. Interesting. Dev Frick, it's because they have to keep up with technology, so they spend all the time Googling. VWebCode, channel link, please. Paradoodly, can you link to that channel? Faraday Academy for the peeps. Edward, hello, Edward Gonzalez from California. Mufuz, hello. Mayim from Ghana. We have such a great international audience here. Suleiman IBR, hello. How goes it? Amir, I'm a React developer. Should I learn React Native or Flutter? Unfortunately, Amir, I don't have any React Native books or Flutter in the hopper tonight. Let's talk about these books. Now, this is a two-pack. These two books I'm about to show you, I wholeheartedly endorse. I talk about them as much as possible, especially when it comes to newbies. I have in my hands two of the greatest newbie programming books ever published, IMHO, by Mark Myers. We talked about this guy yesterday. He's a outsider. He has an AB, which is a fancy way of saying bachelor's degree from Harvard, in philosophy. He was trying to train himself JavaScript. He was trying to learn JavaScript. He was trying to learn HTML and CSS, but he couldn't find any good resources. So what did he do? He wrote his own books because he knew he wasn't the only person who was feeling frustrated. These two books are a wonderful gateway to getting started with code, to getting started with web development, because they are so fundamental. This JavaScript book, you're not going to learn, he doesn't even talk about ES6, like all that stuff, that can come later. He talks about variables. There are different tiny applications you build in here, but each page, there's like, so let me just to give you a feel of what this book looks like, the font and stuff. And I apologize, this book has just gone to hell and back. I've had it for 5 years almost. I got it the year he published it, and I've turned this book into a freaking journal. I have notes, disgusting things in here, just coffee stains and food particles. Like, what was... I even have this card. I was going through this book the other day, and I found this card. A few years ago when I was learning JavaScript, I fell really sick. I got really sick. I was in bed for like 2 weeks. And I try to take really good care of myself. So getting sick is not just unfortunate for me, but it's also very uncommon. I fell very ill. My mom sent me this card, this Get Well Soon card. And I stuck it in this JavaScript book because what was I doing when I was stuck in bed? I was learning JavaScript. I was watching NetNinja videos on the MERN stack. This book has played such a pivotal role in my early career that I swear by it. I swear by this book. Now, this is a book, remember I was talking about the interactive code exercises, so check out this cover. This is the book portion. When you buy the book, he provides you a link so you can go and work on the exercises in your browser on his site. And they're like really snappy exercises. And one of the techniques he uses is a countdown timer, so you have to solve the problem in under 30 seconds. And it's really fun. It's a really fun challenge. These challenges are engaging. They're newbie friendly. Here are some examples of some chapters. Controlling the length of decimals, chapter 30. Chapter 23, strings, finding segments. Chapter 18, for loops. He talks about functions. He defines functions in a way that is just a way that should be defined every time someone talks about them. Prototypes, he even goes into prototypes. Now this is near the back of the book, and this is where it gets a little trickier because prototypes are a pain in the butt. But just, I cannot say enough great things about this book if you are starting out with JavaScript, if you're having problems with JavaScript. And in fact, our mod at large, Paradoodly Do, she snagged herself a copy of this book, and from what I'm hearing, she's digging it. Paradoodly, I don't know if you can add on that, because I know you just started with it, but you've been using the interactive exercises and stuff, right? So it's a 2-step process with the book. Read a 10-minute chapter to get each concept, and then make the knowledge stick. Do the chapter's free interactive exercises on his website. Paradoodly, pop the Amazon link for this book. Full disclosure, I'm an Amazon affiliate. I might get a few cents if you buy the book. The other one he has, this was the first one, absolute first one I started with, a smarter way to learn HTML and CSS. Same concept. I totally made this into my journal. This like weird comics in here. I have ideas for my channel before I even started the channel. I wanted to call it Dumb Girl Dev. Glad I decided against that title. But then I have a page of people I wanted to interview for the channel. Like, this was with me since the beginning. I wanted to interview Judith Estrin, who was the founder of the Ethernet startup supplier. Urs von Berg, Martin Kenny, authors of Sponsors, Communities and Standards, Ethernet versus Token Ring in the local network business. These are people I wanted to interview for my theoretical channel. Relatives of Ada Lovelace, Robert Metcalf, Xerox guy, Ethernet supporter, Mark Myers. Man. I wanted to do a video on rural computer repair. I wanted to interview people about session tokens. Like, I was all over the place, developers, but this is the same type of deal. If you're wondering where to start, I absolutely start with HTML and CSS because HTML and CSS is just easier than JavaScript. And then easing into this one, it's going to be a lot easier than just cold turkey grabbing a JavaScript book. I'm saying for newbies, for code newbies. I don't know. Paradoodly, I think you're just using JavaScript for now, right? But I cannot, I could dedicate another hour talking about these books. So what we're doing right now, category is code newbie. We're going to progressively go to higher and higher levels of books here. I don't have anything too advanced, but there are things that are not necessarily newbie friendly, but they are good for later on. Or some of these aren't good for later on. I'll quickly display those. I just got a handful here. I can't display my whole bookshelf, but I don't know. I probably have like 10 more we have to go through. This next one is John Duckett's JavaScript and jQuery, Interactive Front-End Web Development. I unfortunately purchased this one later on in my learning journey, and I wish I would have gotten it earlier. It's so colorful. It's so engaging. This book is full color. This is encyclopedic in length. We are sitting at, how many pages? Over 620 pages. Like, this is a thick THICC book. But look at this. These colors, they're just, it draws you in, especially as a newbie, and keeps you engaged. Now, some pushback I've gotten with recommending this book in 2020 is the fact that he does teach jQuery in this book. jQuery is a JavaScript library. It's kind of fallen out of the race as far as libraries and frameworks and all this. We've replaced a lot of stuff. We've replaced a lot of jQuery with other things, using stuff like React, Axios, etc. However, this is the point I do want to really emphasize. jQuery is incredibly relevant in the real world because a few years ago, before React and all these libraries and frameworks came to prominence, developers were maximizing on jQuery. There are millions of applications built in jQuery, and even if you get to the job and you're not using it, there's going to be a time where it's time to refactor your code, update the code base, and maybe even convert that jQuery snippet or file or code base, etc., into something else. And you're not going to be able to do that if let's say your company wants you to transform some jQuery into React. You're trying to phase out jQuery in your company and convert it into a React application. You're going to have to know jQuery. And if you don't, it's going to be a big stumbling block. Sure, you can learn it on the job. Thankfully, jQuery is one of the silkiest libraries. The syntax is amazing. You just find something, do something. That's all it is for the most part. jQuery does a lot of other stuff besides manipulating the DOM, but that's one example. Animations. Also, jQuery is great for prototyping. jQuery is amazing for prototyping because the syntax is so succinct. You can just get you could rapidly build a prototype in no time with jQuery. So it is very relevant. Now, are people going out and building projects from scratch in jQuery? Some people are, but we have better tools. We have more efficient ways of doing things. But all in all, jQuery is still a really relevant skill. Just not in the ways it used to be relevant, if that makes sense. Look at this. So here's a jQuery portion. This is called the accordion plugin. I don't know if you guys can see this, and I totally apologize. I know my screencast right now is pretty small, but the layout of this is so newbie friendly. But it can be overwhelming because there are, to my knowledge, there aren't any online exercises. There is no interactivity. Yes, this is really bright. There's a lot of bling to this book. But you're going to have to be the one to motivate yourself to go use this information rather than following along with an online exercise. There aren't any quizzes. There aren't any chapter summaries. This really is sort of a JavaScript and jQuery dictionary. Do not read this from front to back. This is great for a reference. JavaScript and jQuery. He also has one on HTML and CSS that's just as blingy, just as eye-grabbing. It's good too. Paradoodly, go ahead and share that one too. This is a great one for any front-end developer, full-stack developers library. JavaScript and jQuery, John Duckett. Don't let the jQuery fool you. All right. Now we're going to transition into some more, we're going to go a step up. Those were code newbie. We're going to go to intermediate to beginner to advanced beginner. And I'm going to pull out this one, Kyle Simpson's Up and Going. This is part of the You Don't Know JavaScript series. He has 6 other books, Up and Going, or 6 books total rather, Up and Going, Scope and Closures, This and Object Prototypes, Types and Grammar, Async and Performance, ES6 and Beyond. Now, one thing that's immediately apparent about this series of books is that they're really thin. This is like a 60-some page book. And when you compare it to JavaScript and jQuery, yeah, there is quite the difference. Now, fortunately, this one isn't nearly as expensive as that big one, but if you buy the set of these books, it's a little more expensive than the John Duckett book. But the big difference is that this series covers the weird parts of JavaScript, and I wouldn't say these are newbie friendly. If you're thinking about keeping web development as a career, absolutely these are great books to have. This is another one where it is kind of like a page-turning thing where you're not challenged. There aren't any quizzes. There aren't any recaps. Actually, there is some practice here. So I'm going to take that back. I have to rewind that statement because right here, there is a practice section. So part of the practice is write a program to calculate the total price of your phone purchase because he uses an example of a phone plan in here with functions and scope. So Up and Going really is just an introductory book to the weird parts of JavaScript, and then he really gets into it in the other books like Types and Grammar, ES6 and Beyond. He also teaches on front-end masters. This guy's everywhere. Kyle Simpson, he has a big red beard. If you've seen him once, you won't forget the guy because he's one of the very few actual gurus. That word is really, I hate using that word because it's just like, it falls in that category of guru, ninja, and rock star. But really, like, this guy knows JavaScript. This guy's really good. Also some bonus challenges in here. So yeah, I mean, it's not, I do take that back. I thought, from my recollection, it was just me paging through it, probably because I skipped the exercises. But yeah, this is the intro again to the You Don't Know JavaScript series by Kyle Simpson. He's revamping, so this is the funny part about this series, right? Some people had a problem with the title because it sounds condescending to some. You don't know JavaScript. It all really depends on where you are in your mindset. I I've read some books that are really a lot more condescending than this title. But I can see where some people would interpret that as being kind of rude, like, well, you don't know JavaScript. He revamped the titles, and I don't think they're out yet. I think they might be in beta or something. I've seen them on GitHub. He's doing some sort of source control, version control on GitHub with these books. So the new working title is You Don't Know JavaScript Yet. Hoping to appease some of our more sensitive programmers out there who have issue with this title. Just kind of funny. Okay, sticking with the advanced beginner theme, this is one that it's kind of encyclopedic, but not really. It gives the impression that it is. But honestly, if you wanted an encyclopedia on JavaScript, intermediate JavaScript, it would probably be like 10 of these. So this one is called Eloquent JavaScript. I've done a video on it. I've done an article on it. I talk about it a lot. And the reason I do is because I think it's a really good intermediate beginner to advanced beginner book. If you're new to JavaScript, I know the color, the JavaScript yellow, is very enticing. But this is a hard one to get into. Some of the material is really dry. The nice thing is there are a ton of code snippets in here. The other nice thing is that this is a No Starch Press book, which, as many of you know, No Starch Press is freaking awesome. They're my favorite publisher. It's got to be No Starch, O'Reilly, and then Packed. If you have a book from No Starch, you can't go wrong. We have another book in here from No Starch that's also really good. Ugh, I love No Starch. I'm going bankrupt trying to collect them all. But this even has a section on Node in it, Node.js. So for my full stackers, my backend developers, this might be a good one to have too. Here are some of the chapters. Part 1, so there's 2 parts. Let me just make sure I know what I'm saying here. This is a big book. Okay, so part 1 is 12 chapters. And one of your projects is actually building a programming language. How cool is that? That's a project I'd never seen in anyone's portfolio. I might have seen it in one woman's portfolio. She was from Germany. She was doing some killer stuff. I did it on that 32 portfolio reviews video. I don't remember if she developed her own language or she was using some very she was using ClojureScript, which I was like, oh, that's new. That's neat. Not a lot of people using Clojure in the first place, but ClojureScript, that was dope. But your own programming language, that's a portfolio piece, developers. So he shows you how to do that. Part 2 is focusing on the browser with like the DOM, event handling. There's also another project, a skill sharing website, drawing on canvas. Part 3 of the book. Now this is where it gets interesting. Can you see this? Part 3, Node. So chapter 20, Node.js. Chapter 21, skill sharing website with Node.js. Chapter 22, JavaScript and performance. Also in the back, you have some exercise hints. What I really like about this book is the projects. Also the fact that he incorporates Martin Haverbeek. So sorry that I slaughtered your name. I know I did. The author incorporates a lot of different entry points into the language, if you will, with the challenges, with the quizzes, with the review your knowledge, and with the projects. It's just really cool. Not a lot of well, there are some illustrations in here, pretty modest. I mean, compared to this one, this is why I consider this an advanced beginner, because there aren't pretty pictures in this one. Whereas with the beginner, I mean, I need this kind of stuff as a beginner. I need that gentle introduction rather than 10, you know, the F5 force just like hitting me in the face with JavaScript. There's no way I'd be able to start with this. And I know other people are like that too, where they need something just a little more gentle. The tough stuff will always be there at your disposal, available for you at any time of the day or night. But that is the big difference, that this doesn't have as many visual components that I think are newbie friendly. And some of the concepts are a little more advanced too. So that is Eloquent JavaScript 3rd edition. This isn't going out of print anytime soon. I'm sure we'll be seeing a 4th edition soon. When was this printed? 2019. So this is fairly recent. Okay, moving right along. Let's check the chat and see how people are doing. 55 people in the chat. Michael Carmelum says, also learn Python 3 the hard way by Zeb Shah. Shah pulls no punches in his writing style. Yeah, you know, that was the one book I was thinking where I have seen a lot of people say the tone of that book was just a little too much. It's definitely not for everyone. Thankfully, we have book previews en masse, and we can preview. We can preview and review these things at our convenience without spending money on it. You know, like Amazon has that free preview, especially with Kindle. They're pretty generous with their Kindle previews. So be sure to check the previews if you're wondering if the tone is something that aligns with you. Okay, let's go. We're going to stick with, I would say this is advanced beginner to intermediate. And this isn't... I think this is going to be a tough one for people to endorse because it is from like over a decade ago. This is JavaScript The Good Parts by the one and only Douglas Crockford. The funniest part about this book is that it's called JavaScript The Good Parts and it's not a very long book. And Douglas Crockford, being the old schooler he is, he played a massive role in developing JSON. He was involved in the early development of JavaScript and responsible for a lot of the way we use it today. He definitely, every time we fire up a console or fire up a terminal and start, you know, using JavaScript or using a package manager or even just playing with JavaScript, writing hello world, we have this guy to somewhat thank. Brendan Eich was actually the developer of JavaScript, so we have him to thank too. But Douglas Crockford wrote this, and he has done some very interesting videos as of late. These last couple years, I really enjoy his honesty with the language. You know, he's acknowledged this is not, JavaScript was hastily written. It was written in under 2 weeks, and that shows. And he's not afraid to say, this language has some serious problems. And because it's baked into everything we do, because the fundamentals of JavaScript also have some problems, he's not afraid to talk about it, which I find refreshing. Some people are in complete denial, and I don't think that helps us build better software. I don't think being cynical 100% of the time helps us, but I'm just saying I appreciate this guy's honesty, and being honest is a way we can make better software. That's all I'm saying. JavaScript The Good Parts. So he's talking about the idiosyncrasies. He's talking about what makes JavaScript JavaScript. So stuff like, what comes to mind at first? The syntax, arrays, inheritance, prototypes, object-oriented programming in JavaScript, features, methods, functions, and so on. This book has a lot of code snippets and examples. This is another one that is just not recommended to read front to back. If you are dealing with the concept in JavaScript that you find interesting or difficult, this could be, I like this to augment my perception of a feature I'm working with. So if I'm curious about, I don't know, let's just use some simple example. Let's say I'm curious about functions. Well, I'd probably go to the Mozilla Web Docs. They changed the name. It's not MDN anymore. It's like, is it? They changed their name recently, but you guys know what I'm talking about. MDN or MD Mozilla. They changed their name. So yeah, Mozilla Web Docs. We'll just call it that. I'd probably go to Mozilla Web Docs, read a little bit about it. I'd go to and maybe watch a video, and then, now this is if I'm a newbie. Watch a video, go to the docs. I have a pretty good, comprehensive newbie feel. I'm feeling okay about it. We'll say that. I'm feeling okay. I would go to this book to get a different perspective and to enhance my perspectives of some of these features. Just having this book on your shelf is not going to cut it, in my opinion. I like the perspective. especially because he was so involved in the early development of JavaScript and JSON in particular. So chapter 5, inheritance, he calls about callbacks. He talks about callbacks. What else? Augmenting types, exceptions, the apply invocation pattern. He talks about some patterns in here. So very interesting book, very interesting take. JavaScript, The Good Parts by the one, the only Douglas Crockford. The next one on this list, this is another No Starch Press book. Oh, I just got this a few months ago to add to my library. It's such an engaging book. What would you expect? It's No Starch Press. Think like a programmer. This book uses Java for the examples. However, it's going to help you think in different ways. It's going to help you think in new ways, more abstract ways, more creative ways. Creative problem solving is the emphasis in a lot of this book. And then he goes into the technical implementation, like in chapter 5, solving problems with classes. This is by V. Anton Sproul, Think Like a Programmer, An Introduction to Creative Problem Solving. Highly recommend this book. This is an older book. But there aren't any frameworks, there aren't any web implementations, so we're safe. We're safe from this creative problem solving will never be outdated. So this book, I think it's a must on any developer's bookshelf, honestly. I code newbie or 20 years in. This is a really neat book. This guy also has a YouTube channel where he goes through some of the problems in here. He starts out with how to cross the river. Now, this is a very interesting problem. No coding necessary. No coding necessary, as he depicts here with a rowboat, a sack of corn, a duck, and a fox. And I discussed this problem in the Discord a few months ago when I first got this book because I thought it was just such a neat approach. And then he illustrates the different approaches you can take to solving the fox, goose, and corn puzzle, aka how to cross the river. Think Like a Programmer, V. Anton Sproul. He has a YouTube channel, like I said, that really accents some of these challenges in here. Warning though, it is in Java. So it does have limited applicability for web developers. At the same time, there's just so much stuff in here that you can apply right away. And stuff that doesn't have to do with programming. For example, page 11, you're completing a Sudoku square. So no programming involved, but you're thinking like a programmer. You're starting to think like a programmer. So this is good. In this book, you learn how to pick perfect data structures for the perfect job. That's one of his promises. So you're wondering, what's a good choice? This book is going to help show you when to apply that pattern or that structure. Okay, moving right along. Let's check the comments here. I hope you all are having a great night. If you're just tuning in, we are talking about the best developer books in 2020. We have some titles for newbies. We have some titles for intermediate to advanced beginners. We also have some intermediate books. And we have a book or two that is just, I wanted to show because it is something to keep in mind if you're going to be buying books, especially web development books. Biscuit Man Z says, hey Candy, I'm quite new to your channel. Thanks for your content and free biscuits for everybody. Very kind of you, dear Biscuit Man Z. Just checking the comments. Gaston, how's it going? Hello, hello. August, welcome. Sipo Charles, looks like you just had a upgrade, just upgraded with your YouTube account, and are you now an official RTC channel member? Doth my eyes deceive? Thank you for the support. Currently going through a smarter way to learn JavaScript, and regardless of its age, I'm loving it. I'll do the author's jQuery book next, as I think it's relevant. Awesome. That is great to hear. Thanks for sharing that. Dev Frick, get a book on ES6. Problem with tech is you have to unlearn old stuff. Start with a later book, in my opinion. That's a good point, but also at the same time, Dev Frick, you got to remember, newbies need to learn the fundamentals. And ES6 is not necessarily a fundamental. A variable is a fundamental, constant let are not. And so when you learn those fundamentals, you can apply them to the latest implementation. So that is the one big thing where you can run into some trouble. If you just go for the latest and greatest, you run the risk of not learning the fundamentals and instead just learning the latest implementation. And that's going to be tricky if you know what constant let are, but never really studied what a variable is. But at the same time, well, I kind of see what you're saying there, because if you know how to use constant let, it's tricky. It's tricky. That's a good point. I see what you're saying, but it's also tricky because a lot of the latest and greatest books, videos, and etc., blog posts even, they talk about the implementation, but the theory is not touched upon. And developers, especially self-taught developers, we need the theory. We need the data structures. We need the algos. We need that training too. As a side note, that's also a tangent. Lots of stuff to learn. Okay, so I wanted to show this book just as a public service announcement. Now, books are great, but when we're talking web development, they also have a limited shelf life, like very limited, very limited. This is called the Pro MERN Stack. This book was $44.99. I bought it in, I don't know, 2017. I bought it when it first came out. This is on a press. This is a pretty good book. There's a pretty fun project in here. The problem is 6 months later, it was outdated. Why? Because going back to that implementation thing, it doesn't talk about the theory behind React. It doesn't talk about the theory behind Mongo, Express, or Node. This is mainly exercises and implementation based around a project, based around certain features of React, like React Router. He has you build a bug tracker in this book. And when this book came out, my mind was blown because I was just learning the MERN stack, and it was so exciting being able to build full stack web applications by myself, not having to copy and paste 100% of the code. Yeah, I copy and paste it here and there, but to say that I followed along with this book and was able to build a fully functional bug tracker, like a CRUD app, create, read, update, delete. So you're doing the database stuff, you're doing the registration, you're doing the updates. It was just awesome. But a few months later, this book was outdated, and my $44.99, it didn't have that lasting return for me. This is a one and done, read it, crank out the exercise, move on to the next thing. Now, that's fine and that's good, but this is not on my bookshelf anymore. This book is pretty much useless, except for a few things that have to do with the MERN components. You know, what is MERN? Where would you use it? Why would you use NPM? Why would you use Mongo, etc.? This book is 330 pages. So this book was not easy to write. This author, I don't know the current status of this book. But even though this book is really promising, like the back of the book is so promising, assemble a complete stack required to build a modern web app using React, MongoDB, and Express, which runs on Node. Complement React very nicely. This book will also cover many other tools that go into building a complete web app: React Router, React Bootstrap, Redux, Babel, and Webpack. And it goes on. You will discover the details of React, the React way, and how to get the maximum out of this library. See the basics of MongoDB, Express, and Node. Work with the other tools complementary to React. I mean, a lot of this stuff is just, most of this stuff's just outdated with how you implement it. So, you could navigate it, but there's just better resources out there. And that is one big reason why video courses do so much better, in my opinion. When I talk about video courses and talk about online interactive courses, I have a much higher engagement rate and interest rate. And I think it's because in many circumstances, videos do have that ability to shift so quickly with the times. If you want the latest and greatest, you're probably not going to read a book. You probably go to a video course because those are easily updated. You can update them in a non-linear fashion. You can go to chapter 8, update it, and not affect the rest of the videos. Whereas with the book, you have to buy an entirely new book in order to just get one simple update. So big issue there. Where I think books, again, come into play as being great for your bookshelf is timeless topics, the theoreticals, how to think, the meta stuff. Implementation, not so much. Okay, developers, I have 3 more books here. 4 more books. Let's see what's going on in the chat. Sarah's here. Welcome, Sarah. Oh, good to see you. And Chiquito! Chiquito's still holding up in the chat. The Bayless Code's here. Hey, Ian, how's it going? Sarah says, I'm late to the party. No worries. It's always continuous. There's no letting up until the live stream ends. All right, I got 3 more books here. Let's talk about these. Now, this one is not necessarily a coding book, but if you're thinking about starting your own business, doing a freelance hustle, or otherwise making money on your own without the help of a company that's not yours, this book has changed the way I think about my business. And it made me realize that I have a lot of work to do. It's called the E-Myth Revisited. Is Calvin Perez here? I think that's his name. He was in the chat yesterday talking about how he started his own business. I'm wondering if he's read this book, the E-Myth. This book has been around for decades. This one's from 2001. I think it was originally printed in the 80s. It's old. This is an old frickin' book. But it is so relevant if you are thinking of starting a business or you've started a business and you're having some problems. The nice thing about this book is that it's so universal. It's sold so many millions of copies. You can get it for like $1 on eBay. You could get it for like a dime at a thrift store once the stores start opening up and we're safe to go out again. But Michael Gerber wrote this, The E-Myth Revisited, Why Most Small Businesses Don't Work and What to Do About It. This is, I'm not even finished with this book, but once I'm finished with it, I'm going to read it again. This is not a quick read. I've had this book for a few months now, and I still haven't finished it. Highly recommended, The E-Myth Revisited, if you're thinking about freelancing or starting your own business. Okay, The Language of SQL, 2nd edition. Probably there's been perhaps there has been an update to this book. But this book, this version's from 2017. I learned SQL basically on my own with just a mishmash of sources, but I wanted a book where I could grab something and read it at my convenience at an airport or whatever. Well, I don't fly, so if I'm waiting for someone to get off of a plane from the airport, The Language of SQL, you're going to see me sitting in the baggage claim. If you see someone at LAX in the baggage claim area going like this with this book on page 177, looking at correlated subquery updates, you know it's your girl RTC. I don't sleep, I wait. The Language of SQL by Larry Rockoff. This is on Addison Wesley Press. Or Pearson publication. They're huge in collegiate level publications. Strategies for displaying data, creating stored procedures, correlated subqueries, referencing views, left joins, joining 2 tables, the search case format, the in operator, Boolean logic, sorting data, using functions, calculated fields and aliases, primary and foreign keys. SQL is one of those skills where I think a book is always better. Because there is, when you're running queries and writing SQL statements and all this stuff, there's a lot, it can get out of control really quickly, and it's nice to have like one page where you're not scrolling down, or I just feel like it's better formatted for a book. This is my personal bias and personal opinion, but a SQL book rather than a video course, I think can be a lot more effective. This is a pretty good book. This is by no means my all-time favorite SQL book, but it's solid. It's solid. So The Language of SQL, 2nd edition, Larry Rockoff, and like I said, all those chapters contain things that you need to know about SQL, and also an appendix on getting started with MySQL. There's also a little segment on SQL Server and I think maybe even Oracle. I could be wrong. Yeah, there's even a section on getting started with Oracle. So that's pretty neat. And a nice little glossary there. Boom. So this one, OMG, I bought this one. I bought this book before I even knew what a variable was. And I tried reading this book, and I think I got to like page 40 before I said, mm-mm. And that's when I bought the Mark Myers Smarter Way to Learn JavaScript. This is called Object-Oriented JavaScript. I had no idea what I was in for when I bought this book from Half Price Books a freaking half-decade ago. This is on Pack Publishing by Stoyan Stefanov. I actually haven't gone through this book. I just found this book the other day in a pile of miscellaneous junk, but I kept this one because this might be something I might revisit as needed. This is basically this has some really good reviews, but I'm not sure how much he focuses on like implementation with projects and stuff, because that could be troublesome because this is from 2008. Copying properties. So he talks about stuff like isolating the inheritance part into a function, inheriting the prototype only, moving shared properties to a prototype or to the prototype, prototype chaining. So yeah, let's go through some of these chapters. So some of the chapters, coding and design patterns, that's a good one. These are actually kind of timeless topics. The browser environment, again, the basics of the browsers are never going to change. IMHO, prototype, never going to change. Inheritance, objects, functions. Yeah, this seems like pretty... The chapters imply this is pretty future-proof. I'm not going to say I recommend buying this. I just wanted to show you guys this one because object-oriented JavaScript is tough. If you're studying OOP right now and then you start going to JavaScript, I won't get too much into it, but it is tricky. So ES6, we have the new class keyword, relatively new class keyword. So it feels like we're building objects and everything's good, but I think for the most part it works fine. It's just we have prototypes, and OOP with JavaScript is a tricky thing. Okay, developers, I have one more thing. If you're looking to get started with freelancing, you know I gotta self-promote on these live streams. Freelance Newbie, top-rated #1 book. This is workbook size. Paradoodly, do the chat a fave and pop that link. It's 102 pages. You're going to learn everything you need to learn about getting started with freelancing, developing a business plan, establishing your work environment, work from home. We talk about work from home in here, configuring your freelance website, finding clients, finding out what services you need to offer, writing proposals, figuring out a good pricing scheme. Spoiler alert, I don't give you a number on how much to charge. That's the #1 question I get when it comes to services and basically everything with freelancing. How much should I charge? That's one of the top ones. I wouldn't say by far the #1, but it's between position 1 and 2 for how frequently I get asked that. And it's a good question. It's a great question. Getting paid is important. But I can't tell you what to charge because there are dozens of factors, literally. And we talk about all those factors. So this is where this book helps you determine a pricing structure, because we go through the factors. And instead of giving you all the answers, it prompts you to think about your business. This is meant to be a companion throughout your beginning freelance journey. And so I share my own experiences as a freelancer. I share some just methods, strategies, tips, and tricks. This is also a Udemy course. If you're a visual learner with the moving images, paradoodly, please share the Udemy course as well. Freelance Newbie. Once again, I want to go back to that E-Myth book. Where is that E-Myth book? Where is that E-Myth book? Once you get up and started with your freelance business, check out the E-Myth. Once you start making some money with freelancing, this is not I wouldn't say it's a priority book for freelancers. This comes later when you're having some problems with your business. When you're establishing your business and you're getting some problems, this book can help untangle them. Okay, developers, let's check the comments here. That's all I got for books. 62 people in the chat. What's up, Sammy? Sammy Turner says, I have that one. Was about to put steps into action and then lockdown happened. Jay Mendel says, I read Object-Oriented JavaScript. It's a pretty good book. He explains things very well. Matthias, how's it going? Neutral Face Hello, IT contractors. Back in it. Matthias says the E-Myth is the Bible. Yes, yes, I'm glad someone else knows what this book is. This is just, it really is. This book is so, people think, oh, it's from decades ago. Yeah, and it's still relevant because it's a classic. Mohammed, how's it going? All right, developers. Xavier Olivares taking the Udemy course, digging it so far. Awesome. Great. Paradoodly-doo, thank you for modding. Michael Kornblum, great to have you as a mod. Developers, I thank you for tuning in tonight. We went over some great books from beginners. Now, just for people who joined the chat late, Mark Myers, A Smarter Way to Learn JavaScript, A Smarter Way to Learn CSS. Woo! Great beginners books. If you're going from intermediate to intermediate advanced to de facto intermediate with JavaScript, Eloquent JavaScript's a great one. Think Like a Programmer should be on all of our bookshelves. I know it's in Java. You can thank me in a few years. This is an awesome book. So where is the book list? I don't have a book list for all the ones I showed, Blue Jay, but Paradoodly-doo has a link for the top 5 JavaScript books for 2020, and I think I went through most of them on here. I might have omitted 1 or 2, but on RealToughCandy.com I have a list of 5 best books, JavaScript books for 2020. There's also a little indicator of who they're best suited for. No sense in having an intermediate JavaScript developer go and buy the Mark Myers books. So just to help people along with their journey. I want to give a shout out to Sipo Dev, who is the newest YouTube channel member. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. We're going to be doing a live stream every night. I have some special guests coming up. So do you all remember Lucien Mendel last week when Michael Kornblum and Carlos did, or it was 2 weeks ago now, they did a mock junior developer interview. Lucien is going to be coming back on the channel, and we are going to be discussing all your interview questions. Lucien has been doing interviews for decades. So at least, well, I shouldn't say that. That might be too explosive. They've been doing it for a very long time. So that's going to be fun. That's going to be a live stream. We're still working on a date on that, but you want to stay tuned. I'm trying to get some more guests on here just to keep it popping, keep the mood nice and bright and moving forward. I want to welcome all my new members, both YouTube patrons, Janos, the newest Patreon. I got your goodie bundle coming to you, Janos. Don't fear. Thank you all for your support, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.